channeling my inner Qui-Gon Jinn because I feel like I fought Darth Maul all day. Hey guys, welcome to Machtails from the Cantina live. No show intro tonight because I have a problem. Some of you guys might have the same problem that I have. There's a quote from the Phantom Menace, which is what we are talking about tonight, that I love to quote when I'm face to face with my problem. It's time, and it's running out of it. And either way, we're running out of time, as they once said on the Queen's ship in episode 1. We're going to go around the horn today. We're going to have a little round table discussion. God, it's hard to believe this is the 5th calendar year of Mocktails from the Cantina. This is also maybe a day or two past the 3rd year anniversary of the live show. Unbelievable. Again, where does the time go? I have some old friends and familiar faces joining me on the show today. I want to give a shout out to Jason Stockson. Probably butchering that last name right. I've had many a pints of beer, many sips of whiskey with Jason. B-Wing pilot Jason, but from here on out, henceforth, you will be known as Cool Jason because you have joined us on Patreon. Another Mocktail from the Cantina Patreon supporter. I want to give a shout out to all my Patreon supporters, and I want to encourage you guys to keep the show up. I double stepped on my hands off the board because I have brother Matthew Rooney behind the board working his magic. Matthew, welcome back to the show, and thank you as always for spending 1 hour with us.
Sure, yeah. Happy 2024. I don't think we've had a live show this year yet, so welcome to the new year, everybody.
So here's the thing, Matthew. It's the last day of the month, and I'm like, shit, we got to do a live show. Because that was kind of the promise that I've made to the Mocktails from the Cantina community. And we missed that one, I don't know, back in November. It was the only one that we've missed. And I told my wife today, I said, you know what? Maybe I need to start doing a live show at the first of the month.
Yeah.
And she goes, what fucking difference is that going to make? She goes, knowing you, it's not going to make a difference. I don't know. We might try it, but it is the last day of the month. Happy New Year to you. Did you set yourself up for any kind of failure by choosing a New Year's resolution?
No, I don't do resolutions. I'm always doing my best at my work and what I do, and so I just keep doing that, and I don't need a new calendar to tell me to do that. So
you don't need a government calendar day to to make positive changes in your life, right?
No, I don't.
Well, again, brother, thank you for joining the show. Thank you for tinkering with all the magic behind the scenes. I know we got some cool visuals that we're going to talk about on today's show. I want to introduce somebody that you guys have seen since he was 9 years old in The Force Among Us. And then doing the math really quickly, 9 plus, I don't know, what, 6, 7, teenager in The Force Within Us. You guys have not seen him in a long time, and I don't have any screenshots of him. But for those of you that are familiar with my documentaries, you are no stranger to my brother, Joshua Walden. Joshua.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Your Mocktails from the Cantina debut just happens to be live.
I love it.
So I like I like the fan behind you. It reminds me of like we were doing the Ahsoka recap, and I saw like these Halo type of images for Balin's skull. You look like you have a very spiritual thing going on behind you. I dig it, man. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk Star Wars with you, especially Episode 1, because you were 5 years old. No, 4 years old when you had seen this, and I had taken you to the movie, God, at least 3-4 times. I had seen this film 30 times in the theater. And then this movie is big. I want to bring on brother Sean Hines, who's no stranger to the show. Sean, you've had a streak on this show before.
Well, it's always seems to be a first or something. First guest, your first show of the year. Why not be on the show, right?
Yeah, like Baby Belushi does he's the holiday guest, right?
Yeah.
And then we have you that are always doing the firsts, you know?
Gotta keep that streak going, you know what I'm saying, brother?
Yeah, so hey, speaking about a streak, I want to bring on brother Rich Brendel. We're going to do a cheer and a beer segment before we officially start this round table discussion. Brother Rich Brendel, let's see if he is standing by. Rich, are you there?
Oh, I heard something.
His camera's there.
Well, I'm coming.
He's coming. All right. Hey, kind of caught him off guard here a little bit. Brother Rich, this is your time to shine, my friend. As we celebrate the 25th anniversary year of the Phantom Menace, what are you raising your glass to, my friend?
Yeah, sorry about the wait there. I didn't see you right away and was going to go grab a different drink until I was going to do a cheer. But tonight I'm going to raise my glass to the one Jedi that's willing to stick his neck out for anybody. Uriel Proof.
Hey, literally. Hey, cheers to that. Uriel Proof, played by, I want to say, Michelle Taylor was the puppeteer. Hey, cheers, brother. Looking forward to seeing you on the next show. And, before I let you go.
Yeah.
What is your takeaway that this film turns 25 this year? Where does it rank up for you in all 9 films? Let's go that route. I know Matthew Rooney doesn't like it when I do that, but let's take you there.
I would say it's probably 5.
5, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, not the original trilogy. All of them are my favorites. And then Rogue One, and then this.
Hey, that says a lot right there. Original trilogy, Rogue One, and then this. Hey, brother Rich, I love you, man, and we'll see you next time.
Love you too, man.
All right, take care. All right, now let's get this round table officially started here. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's talk about the fact that it is 25 this year. This kind of makes me feel like, holy, 25 years. That's crazy, because when this film had come out, Return of the Jedi was only 16 years old. From the original trilogy, the era of nostalgia, which is kind of funny because it was nostalgic when The Phantom Menace came out.
The film is now older than the distance between the Jedi and when it was released. Yeah,
exactly. Which is crazy. That is that's kind of crazy to comprehend. It makes me feel like, holy crap, 25 years went by in essentially the blink of an eye. Sean, how does it make you feel? 25 years.
Old. That's how it makes me feel. I mean, what other way is there to say it? I mean, let's just be plain and clear about it. When now that the Phantom Menace toys are pushing that vintage era time frame, as far as when when the classic movies came out, and when the Phantom Menace came out, and the classic Kenner toys were whatever age they were. Now here we are with the Phantom Menace toys reaching that same age. Growing up with your brother here, almost. In that time period.
Josh might be sitting on a little bit of I don't know, a small gold mine, because Josh, you still have all your toys from then, yes?
Oh yeah, that's all stored away.
Now, how does it make you feel? Because you were 4 then.
Yeah.
And now,
I guess the question I'd like to know is, does he have the same nostalgia for Phantom Menace toys that Chris, say you and I would have for original trilogy toys?
That's a good question.
Well, to answer your first question, I think I put it in the perspective of, so I turned 29 in March, and that's around the same time that you were like showing me the movies. So I feel really old because I'm like your age when you were showing me in 99 these movies. So it's really coming full circle for me, for sure, when I think about it. When I put it in that perspective. For toys, I haven't seen a Star Wars toy in so long, and I don't go up and get them. I'm really what I appreciate the most out of my collection is all the autographs that you got me throughout the years, all the Christmas presents and like birthday presents you used to get me. I used to be so bummed out as a kid, like, you wanted to play with toys, like the Star Wars toys were cool, and then I would get all these frames of Solo, Skywalker, and you don't do anything with a frame and an autograph on it. But then when you're
like 6 years old and I'm giving him a signed autograph, he's like, "What the hell am I gonna do?" but now he appreciates it.
Oh yeah,
I like that picture. Obviously, was the midnight release during Celebration 1. Me and my then girlfriend, now wife, hitting up the closest Toys R Us we could find, and gathering up as much as we can in the madhouse that was that release, and then we're going over our bounty hunt back at the hotel room, making sure we got the full set, which we were lucky enough to do, and a couple of sets, if you will, the one to buy, one to open, one to sell, that kind of whole thing that we used to do. Not so much anymore, but yeah, that was the mode you were in when it came to all those toys back then.
You know what's funny? I just had a realization here when you're talking about the Midnight Madness, these toys going on sale, mostly for episode 1 versus the 2 that followed, because there wasn't any really new Star Wars. Well, no, there was new Star Wars toys that came out in the mid-90s. But here's the thing. As big as Star Wars...
The steroid Star Wars.
The steroid Star Wars, yes. As big as the toys were back in the day, I mean, everybody got Star Wars toys for Christmas, birthday gifts, doing well at school, these sort of things. There was never this madness back then for these toys. Like everybody knows, there's a documentary about the Cabbage Patch Kids that came out kind of, shortly after that, right? Maybe 83, 84, 85, where there were bomb threats and, people held at gunpoint, that kind of shit. That didn't happen over Star Wars toys. But madness happened in the aisles of Toys R Us during midnight when these toys were released. This was a big fucking deal that we had never seen before. It was like the hype for new Star Wars film was so grand, and I want to talk about that. But Josh, I got to stay focused here, and it's going to be hard for me to do this. Josh, what is your favorite toy, or your first toy that you remember getting?
I mean, the lightsabers, obviously, but then also too, just like the little knickknacks, the pod racing sets, the alarm clocks, the Naboo fighter alarm clock with, Anakin saying stuff. Things like that are like what hold true to me. Like when I think of memories of being a kid with Star Wars, was just fighting, lightsaber battles with your buddies in the front yard with the plastic ones. So I'd probably just say like the straight up plastic lightsaber because that's what I use the most for sure.
And then of course the cool merch like the pod racer alarm clock. Speaking of that, this is one of my prized possessions from Matthew, if you could bring me full screen for this one. This was a Pez dispenser that my cousin Angel got me for Christmas in '99. Angel, Angry Mike's sister. And I just love, this is an FAO Schwartz exclusive, I believe. And I just love the oddball items. And this is one of my favorite pieces from the episode 1 line. There was so much episode 1 stuff, and the licensing was so grand that it got to the point where vendors got burned and the merch just kind of slowly trailed down.
Well, the madness that happened was all about, the old school fans wanting to get their hands on all the new stuff, and also the dreams of retiring on the the new batch of Star Wars based on how valuable the older stuff was. How could the new stuff not be as valuable as the old stuff? It wasn't an unimaginable thought that the new stuff wouldn't be worth as much as the old stuff. But yet, time tells a different tale.
And then, of course, like you said, a lot of that stuff is starting to go up in price because we have, people like my brother and Tyler, that generation that was 4 or 5 years old when these films had come out. This is their original trilogy, if you will. And then we have people like Angel's son, Abe, who someday is going to, want to collect some of the prequel stuff. Matthew, for you, how old were you when you had seen this film? And how does it make you feel that it's turning 25 now? This is kind of a big one. This isn't the special edition turning 25. This is the Phantom Menace turning 25.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was 15 when this came out, turning 16 that year, and so I was in high school, and I liked it. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Like, I didn't felt like it was as good as the older films, and maybe I still don't feel that way. But definitely, it still feels like there was a longer time between 83 and 99 than from 99 to today. And I think it's just because when you're a kid, time just goes by so much slower than it does as you get older.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like tonight I was going through photos. I, got some photos from Sean, and I was going on Google looking for photos of some of the stuff in 99. And I was talking to somebody about how, this is before digital cameras. So like a lot of the photos are still from, disposable cameras and film cameras. And so like a lot of the pictures aren't as good as they are now. Like nowadays people get great pictures because you can take, 100 of them and pick the best ones and look at yourself and all that. But back then it's more candid and then a lot of them are very small in size too.
You had a roll of 35 prints. You had a roll of 35 prints, and you hope you got the shot, and you didn't know until you got it developed.
Right.
Exactly.
All right, so we got Matthew, you're the teenager when this comes out. Josh, you're my age when I had seen, the first Star Wars movie practically. I was in my 20s when The Phantom Menace came out, and when it came out, it was like the 7th time that I saw it. I was like, oh, now I understand what's going on. I don't know if the fucking political story was just too big for my artsy fartsy brain. But it took me a while to understand what was going on. I always liked this film. And I want to say something for the fans that really enjoyed this film when it came out. We didn't have social media back then. We didn't have that kind of negativity. But we heard it from the critics. We heard it from Triumph the fucking dog. It was the jokes and the hate were everywhere. Not only about the film.
You're dressed up as a huge nerd.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily about the film only. It was about the film and the fan base. So it was very much like, the era of being a fan at that time. You took it like a man. You really, really had to. You really did. And it was one of those things where now people talk fondly about this. It's like I'm glad it's kind of come around, and I'm glad it's kind of come around.
I used to take it a little personal when they were the late shows. The comedians were taking jabs at all of us waiting in line and buying these tickets early, because I was like, wait a minute, you're confusing us with Star Trek fans. They're the nerds. We're the cool guys. We're the cool kids. This is Star Wars, not Star Trek. That's the way that was the way I looked at it. You know what I'm saying? But I remember I went with my wife, or girlfriend at the time, and Alfie. We went to Yorktown Cinema opening night. Well, the night before it opened, I had went to a Tower Records in Schaumburg because Ray Park was doing a signing the night before. And then the day the movie was released, I think I saw it twice. Once in the morning, first showtime, and then the second time was a 7:00 show in Lombard, at Yorktown Mall in Lombard. And when we came out, I remember Alfie and I can't remember if it was Channel 7 or Channel 9, got stopped by a reporter asking us what we thought. So we were in one of those montage clips of fans coming out, seeing it for the first time. We want to know what their first impressions were. And I was just like, I was still kind of on the high of just seeing new Star Wars. So I'm sure I was like, man, this is great. And it was. I enjoyed it. It was a great experience when I saw it. You know what I mean?
For somebody, you're a little older than me. So you were at that right age to see, the. This makes me feel old because we've been friends now for 25 years. But to hear you say that you like the film says a lot from somebody that truly grew up on that very, very first Star Wars film. I feel like I truly grew up on The Empire Strikes Back. I didn't necessarily grow up on that first Star Wars film. I was just a couple years too young to just be mesmerized by that. But Empire Strikes Back, that was like my very, very first, holy crap, this is a really cool movie.
I love these pictures from my Halloween party where we're doing our little battle. You couldn't be any less enthused about the battle we're having right now.
I was saying that earlier.
You know what's funny, Sean? You know that's still the face that I make. I just don't smile.
No, that's the mock photo face never changes.
No, that's one thing that has remained the same. Josh, where does this film rank for you? And because to me, this is kind of, even though I showed you the original trilogy before you had seen The Phantom Menace, you were even that much younger. So I would think that The Phantom Menace is probably like how Sean had seen A New Hope. Where does this rank up for you? And do you remember the experience that you had at such a young age?
Yeah, I remember the experience. It was always on. I feel like it was just that time of, I was born in a time where, I didn't have memories of like 95 to 98, 99, you kind of come to, and, you're versed in this new world of Star Wars, which is Phantom Menace. So you're digging deep into, what the prequels are all about. It's always on. You're just shoving all this new information of Star Wars to anybody that can listen to it, which was me at the time. You would always have it on. I would always, that was always on repeat for me as a kid. So I always liked it a lot in the beginning. But as I got older and as I rewatched the movies and really understood the plots and really understood what the movies were truly about, I would definitely say that the sequels are better than the prequels. So I'll do all 4, 5, and 6 before 1. I'll take 1 before 2, but I'll take 3 before 1. So I like Rogue One too. I don't like the 7th, 8th, or 9th as much. So it's probably around like 4 or 5, I would say, probably.
So The Phantom Menace is number 4 or 5 for you?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. So John, I'm trying to figure out, when you were introduced to the films, what order were you? Did you see the original trilogy before you saw Phantom Menace, or was Phantom Menace your introduction?
No, I showed him the other ones, but he was so young.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just around that time where, like, because I remember watching it at my sister's house. Like, I remember Jabba the Hutt
they were just on. So you were aware.
Yeah. It was always on in the background. You know, you'd pop in, you'd see a little what have you lightsaber fight as a kid, but then when you come to around like 4 years old, like you have memories of like 2 or 3, but like Phantom Menace was like the first introduction for me because Christian said it earlier. It's like the first big screen movie that you see for Star Wars, and you know you remember the sequels being on like these little TV boxes, so it was like so captivating for me to see it on a big screen because I didn't have the opportunity to see the sequels
So
on a
as a
big screen.
so I'm guessing the original trilogy just being on the background, you really weren't focused on it. But with Phantom Menace was probably your first time to be able to sit down and let the story come at you, where you can actually pay attention to what's happening and figure out what this world everybody else has been talking about up until this point, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. That's about right. Because then you'd come home and then they'd be like, "Well, there's more of it. Like all you just watched, like there's 3 more of those just like it in some way. You know, part of that story." And then as a kid, you're like, "Oh my, like I gotta watch that too." And you get into like the deep rabbit hole of what Star Wars is. But yeah, to answer your question, it was so captivating on a big screen. Just like John Williams, I love so much. I will go to war for that man. And he
I think that's a fair statement. That it's a blanket statement for everybody. Yes.
And I'm sure he's got a soundtrack for that war that you're going to go into too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
gotta
just
say,
the
I gotta
music
give
and all the theatrics of it all was amazing to me. And yeah, that was my first introduction to Star Wars, I would say.
I got to give a shout out to producer Ian Savage. And I want to chime in here. Christopher White had said he saw A New Hope in 77. Empire Strikes Back is still his favorite movie of all time. And then he also says that he loves The Phantom Menace. Okay, so he's from our era, Sean.
Yeah.
And he says that The Phantom Menace has 2 of his all-time favorite Star Wars characters, Darth Maul and Qui-Gon, and he still enjoys The Phantom Menace. Hey, drink a word of the night. We should have done this at the top of the show. Only drink if you're 21 and drink responsibly, please. So there's a couple ones to catch up. Hey, let's go back to John Williams, right? So the story, the soundtrack, I should say, was released before the film.
And before spoiler alerts.
Yeah, it was before spoiler alerts, and boy, was I spoiled that God bless Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon's Noble End was on the soundtrack. I bought it the day that it came out. But this video was playing everywhere and anywhere, and the song was playing everywhere and anywhere. So you have to think about how powerful and how favorite the Duel of the Fates is. That was kind of the setup.
That was a huge deal. That was a huge deal. I mean, they premiered it at Celebration, and then MTV had a premiere for it. So it was a huge deal.
And I would say, oh, Ian Savage says, more. Ian Savage wants to drink there.
Ian Savage wants to get faced.
Yeah, he sure does. So I would say that Duel of the Fates it's better than anything that was written on the original Star Wars soundtrack. It's better than anything from A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I felt that way then.
False. That is absolutely false. You're wrong on so many levels. I can't even tell you how wrong you are.
Come on. Darth Vader Imperial March versus Duel of the Fates?
Correct.
Oh, man.
Imperial March is better. Yes, 100%. 100%. Know your roots, goddammit.
Hey, I know my roots, but I know what also. Yeah, John Williams is my roots, but come on, man.
Goddamn right. Come on, man.
that just ain't right. All right, let's talk about the hype. Matthew, I know you said, look, you're a teenager. Jimmy Mack said he didn't really care for Return of the Jedi all that much because he was a teenager. You got Ewoks, but at the same time, you got Slave Leia, Princess Leia in the slave bikini, whatever. So Hut Slayer Leia, whatever the fuck she's called now. So that's going to appeal to the teenage boy, but there was nothing that would really appeal to the teenager sexually when it came to the Phantom Menace. Did this film meet up to the hype? Because there was so much around it. Sean, did it meet up to the hype? I know Josh can't answer that because he was so young. He was just happy to see a Star Wars film.
I mean, the hype was overwhelming. It had been 16 years, and like you said, it felt longer than anything else. I mean, the Star Wars drought was just that. It was a drought. After the last thing we really had was the Saturday morning cartoons, and then your novels here and there, and your sporadic comics. But there was really nothing. So you were really we were starved. We were so starved for something new. And then the Thrawn trilogy came out, and then the press promotions leading up to the Phantom Menace. When that first trailer came out, I mean, come on, how many people went to buy a ticket to meet Joe Black and then just left after the trailer? I mean, seriously, that is pretty.
That was another thing, man. People were going into Adam Sandler's Waterboy, right?
It was Meet Joe Black. It was Waterboy, but people would buy the tickets, watch the trailer, and leave. Nobody didn't care one bit about the movie, and that's the kind of hype that was being created around this. Every entertainment show was talking about it. The trailers were coming out as fast and furious leading up to the release. Did it live up to the hype? Yes and no. It lived up to the hype for the simple reason that we had fans lined up for weeks for a movie. Who needs to line up for a movie for weeks? I mean, seriously. But we did it because that was what made it fun. Yeah, I mean, I'm Alfie. I remember dropping Alfie off at a theater the night before so we could just camp out with the crew. And then he went down to Chicago and visited Chicago Force when they were all lined up for that screening. I mean, it was when we really started to come together as a fan community. I think that's when the community
for sure.
Between that and then this first celebration, that was like the ground zero for all of that. So in that sense, it lived up to the hype. History, whether you liked it, loved it, hated it, whatever, might say something else. But box office results were there. So even if you hated the movie, the money was there. People bought the tickets. I know I saw it a good dozen times. Just probably 4 or 5 times just that opening weekend. So
Well, it's funny you mentioned the camping out, and this is something that I really enjoyed doing as a music fan, camping out for concert tickets. But they had gotten away from doing that come the mid-90s, and then so there was a little bit of a nostalgia factor camping out to get the tickets to this film and to see the film as well. Now, I do want to comment. So, Josh and I shared this obsession over Plo Koon, and actually all the Jedi, but Plo Koon was our favorite. And there was something that was so appealing about the Jedi Council. It was so mysterious because these people did not have very, very long roles at all. And I think that's kind of why Attack of the Clones failed a little bit, because I thought we would have seen the Jedi that we fell in love with in the Phantom Menace and that we played in the Jedi Powers battle game, the PlayStation 2.
Dark Horse Comics.
Do this.
I felt like Dark Horse really picked it up and did all those different comic series about the Jedi Council, which I loved all that stuff, like after Phantom Menace came out.
Yeah. Now, Matthew, for you, would you say that this film, did you get to appreciate it as it's aged to its 25th year?
Yeah, definitely. Like after Revenge of the Sith came out, I would have said that it was my least favorite of the 6 films, but as I've gotten older, I actually like it better than the other 2 prequel films. Like those ones in particular, like Anakin. I loved the Anakin character. I liked Hayden Christensen a lot. I watched a bunch of his other stuff that was coming out too at the time, and he's about the same age as me, maybe a couple years older. And the character was like the same age as me as well. Like when Attack of the Clones came out, I was 20 or 21, and that's how old Anakin was. And then same with Revenge of the Sith. Like it was 3 years later, and so I was the same age as that character, and I really liked it a lot. But now that I'm older, I think I appreciate it partially because of the Qui-Gon character, and also just seeing how devastating it was for Anakin to lose that father figure in his life. Like the original trilogy is about Luke kind of trying to correct his father, but the prequels is about how Anakin just doesn't have one. Like Obi-Wan tries, but isn't really a good father figure, and it was Qui-Gon that he needed, and he lost him, and so it was really vital that battle with Darth Maul at the end of the film. But I think I appreciate it because it was sort of before George went all digital, which I don't absolutely hate, but there's so many of the, like there's miniatures still in it, and they used the puppet for Yoda originally, at least before they replaced it. But it was more akin to the original trilogy, I think, as far as the special effects goes, which
it felt more. It felt more, for lack of a better term, Star Wars. It felt when this was our first step back into that world, and you really did feel like you were back in that world. Everything was tangible with the practical effects. Yeah, there was CGI in there too, but it blended in pretty nicely. I thought the only exception, for me anyway, was the droid battle on the grassy fields. That grass it just didn't quite look right, but it didn't take my away from enjoyment of it. But once it got to that part, it just really felt like I was watching a cartoon. That's neither here or there. It doesn't take away from my movie experience. It's just something that's just the way it felt to me. But like you were saying, all that stuff in Tatooine, all that stuff on this Coruscant, it just felt like we were back into that galaxy, far, far away.
Well, especially with the stuff, they actually went back to Tunisia. And I think going back to where it all began, I think George was getting a little nostalgic about filmmaking himself because he had finally, made another Star Wars film after 16 years. And he goes back to where it started for him. And I think there's something very, very special about that. And the cool thing about going to Tunisia, as you guys know, I've been there. It's really cool to kind of get the feel of seeing old sites from the very first Star Wars film and then seeing, the Phantom Menace sites. There's something really, really cool about that. Now, Josh, you had watched the film today. Where does this film hold up for you? And are you a little nostalgic about this film as well?
Yeah, I'm definitely nostalgic about it. There's just scenes that you can't get out of your head as a kid that you just know verbatim, word by word, exactly like what they're going to say, the ad libs, like all those things that come into it when you're watching it. Where it holds up for me, though, that's a really good question because I just watched it for the first time and it feels like 10 years at least. It holds up in, the action sense of it. The acting, though, I can't really get behind in some scenes.
Okay, so you feel like the act is the act. What is more hard to get past? The visual effects from that era, or the acting? Or the acting?
For me, it's the acting because I don't know, like the visual effects weren't bothering me as much because it's just something that was there at the time. Like there was nothing that I could base that off of at 4 years old. So it's just something that I've always known. So you don't really think about it as much. But for the acting, like I can't. The Jake Lloyd one-liners, they kill me sometimes, man.
The funny thing is that he looked a lot like you when you were a kid. Jake Lloyd didn't bother me. I don't want to say never because I could probably go back and watch the film today and I could be like, okay, yeah, but is that more is that George's directing? Because look, Mark, Harrison, and Carey said that George was a very challenging director. And as we know, he only directed the first Star Wars. So here we have George Lucas going, you know what? Everybody loves Empire and Jedi. People love A New Hope as well. But that kind of boggled my mind that George said, you know what? I'm going to direct these movies. That was kind of, then it was kind of unusual. And looking back on it and talking about it now, it's like,
Well, I think that was more of a combination of he had an itch to scratch and he didn't want to give up control. He wanted to scratch that directing itch again, but he didn't want to give up the control of where everything was going to end up going story wise, which I think he did relinquish a little bit. with the original trilogy, both with the directors he put in charge, and then of course with Marsha doing the editing. So who took what he did and then fixed it. I think, yeah, like to Josh's point, the acting, yeah, comes across a little wooden. And Jake Lloyd, how old was he when he filmed it? What do you want from a kid? When it comes to acting, it's
Totally.
I think he got a bum rap when it came to all the criticism of his performance. He just, he's a kid actor. He's just doing what he's told. The rest of the performances, if they came off a little wooden, that's probably, George's direction of either faster, more intense, of, okay, let's just get it in the can and move on to the next. I think he was more interested in the blocking and the technology than the performances.
Now, Josh, your favorite character, I will bring you back to your 4-year-old self. Your favorite character was Sebulba. And I always thought it was very cute because every time we had seen the pod race scene, because I probably took you to the movie about 5 times in the theater, you actually were in tears that Sebulba lost the Bluetooth key. And I'm like, wow, he's not even cheering for Anakin. He's cheering for Sebulba. I thought that was the coolest thing. Sebulba's #1 fan, hands down. Watching it back, do you have a favorite character after watching it today?
Favorite character.
Do you still have the obsession with Sebulba that you did when you were 4 years old?
No, I always had an obsession with him. Just the look. I loved his goggles when he got on the pod
he
race.
was great.
I just loved his just his confidence, just how he carried himself, man. It was just something that I could not get my eyes off of. But I'm really trying to think about this question you just asked me, and I really like Watto a lot. Just like the whole aura of what Watto is, what he's about, how he kind of handles himself throughout the scenes. But that's more sub character. I've always kind of been more of a sub character person more than a main character type of person. For main characters, man, it's tough.
No, you know what? I think Watto is good enough. So we went from Sebulba to Watto. And just a quick comment on the technology too. It's like, I felt like all the CGI characters were done really, really well. Sebulba and Watto, hands down, the best CGI characters. But they could not. They couldn't get Jar Jar down like they did Sebulba. So Brother Rich Brendel says, love the early scenes with TC-14, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan seeing the lightsaber ignite. Now, I did want to do
with the room's all full of fog, the lightsabers come on. That was great.
Yes. That opening scene was really, really good. The people in that cruiser that brought them there, they die right from the beginning. We talked about, I believe, Brona Gallagher is her name. We talked about her on the St. Patrick's Day episode a couple of years ago. But
she was in The Commitments, by the way. I wanted to say that when I heard you do that show. There's a really great Irish film called The Commitments that she's a main character in. And when I saw Phantom Menace, I was like, what the heck? What's she doing in here?
Really?
And it was just for like a minute,
right?
or like a half a second or something.
So here's a little fact. I don't know if anybody has a crazy fact, but TC-14 played by, I want to say her name is Lindsay Duncan. She is married to the green pilot, A-Wing pilot, that goes right into the Star Destroyer in Return of the Jedi.
No kidding.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of a crazy fact. The things that you learn while stalking for autographs. These crazy little facts. But I wanted to share that with you guys as I have my notes. Let's talk favorite scenes. Josh, favorite scene from this?
It's always been the pod race for sure.
Pod race,
my whole life, and still will always hold up for me.
It's funny. As much as people complained about the film back then, people always said, "Wow, the fucking pod race scene was awesome." That was kind of a crazy thing that I heard continuously from people that were like, yeah, the movie was okay, but the pod race scene was amazing. So I'm not surprised that you picked that one. Darth Hines, what's your favorite scene from
Yeah,
the Phantom Menace?
It's tough to beat the pod racers, and that's the go-to for pretty much everybody, you know. For me, it's the lightsaber scene, this lightsaber battle.
Yes.
You know, I always liked I would always fast forward when I finally got it on video. I may or may not have had a bootleg. I will never confirm or deny that, but I would always just fast forward just to the lightsaber bits, just because I was really digging it the way the whole thing played out.
I gotta say that would be mine, and I feel like even the space battle intertwined with that, but the battle with the Gungans slapped in the middle of all of those two great scenes. I was like, come on, man.
The space battle, I didn't feel any stakes with the space battle. I didn't know anything. You didn't. I mean, there was really you didn't really need. There was very little investment in these pilots. You know, like we really didn't get to know anybody except for the one guy that flew the Star Cruiser. I guess what's Rick Olay? Was that it?
Yeah, Rick Olay. Yes.
Yeah, the other ones. I mean, yeah, you could say the same thing about the X-wing pilots in The New Hope, but you kind of got to know them a little better during the battle and just a little bit before. This one, there's all these pilots, and I'm like, who are these people, and why should I care about them? You know, but
I think, you know, going back to what Josh said, he's always been a sub character. I mean, look at we thought Bosk and IG-88 were the shit, and they were in it for 2 seconds.
That's true.
I felt like these pilots, and look, people talk about woke this, woke that, and how Disney's doing this, Disney's doing that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But let's go back to that space panel. We got the black pilot, we got the female pilot, we got the kid pilot, we got the white pilot. I mean, George was always incorporating all these different all these different races and ethnic backgrounds in these films.
It was all the colors. It was all the colors of Benetton represented in the space battle. But no, I had nothing. You know, the representation is what it is. You know, I don't want to say I don't notice it, but it doesn't faze me. You know, if they're there, cool, and if they're not, I'm not gonna get upset about it. I think it's important that everybody gets a place in the galaxy far, far away. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I mean, we saw that during the Return of the Jedi space battle. I mean, there were all these different ethnic backgrounds. So
right, yeah.
It's funny how social media. God, I don't believe this film would have held up, you know, with social media back in the day. I don't. I believe that this film would have been fucking torn to shreds with social media, because look at what it's doing to great films that are coming out now, great films and TV shows. Matthew, you have a favorite scene from The Phantom Menace?
I mean, certainly when it came out, it was the pod race scene like everybody else, and probably it's still one of my favorite scenes. I like the lightsaber battle too. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I like the Jedi Council things as well, even though they're kind of dicks. but especially Jackson. But yeah, I like that stuff. I wanted to say though that I think, you know, as far as Jake Lloyd goes, and sort of, because I always feel like it's kind of goofy that he like accidentally blows up the control ship and all that. But if you think about, like, I mean, George had adopted 2 young children, and you know, he did those Ewok films in the late 80s, and he was very much like trying to create stuff for his kids. And so I feel like, you know, the reason he picked Jake Lloyd and had him perform that way was because it was supposed to be for children. And he's emphasized that over and over and over again. Like at the anniversary a few years ago when they had him at Celebration, I think it was 2017 for the 40th or whatever it was, 50th. I can't remember anymore, but he said it's supposed to be for kids. And so I think that's what it was about. You know, he had Jar Jar and he had Jake Lloyd, and I like the whole prequel trilogy to me is unfiltered George. Like he just, you know, he made the films that he wanted to make, and he didn't care what anybody thought about it.
I can vouch for that too. Like for kids, I had no problem with Jake Lloyd. I loved everything about him when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. So it definitely held up. But as you get older and you watch more movies, you start to pick apart like acting scenes. But like as a kid, I loved him.
Yeah, you get more cynical as an adult. As a kid, like Zoe, I forget how old she was. She was probably maybe 5 or whatever when she finally saw the Phantom Menace, and she fell in love with Jar Jar. And she told my brother because of Jar Jar, because of how much she liked Jar Jar, she was like, "Oh, I can see why Uncle Sean likes Star Wars so much." And she thought it was because of characters like Jar Jar, which I thought was a pretty interesting observation. But yeah, I always felt when it came to the way they portrayed Jar Jar, I know George was really gung ho about going the full CGI. I always thought it would have been cool if they would have just had, because they had Ahmed Best in the costume, to just maybe if they were to just CGI the head, and then leave him in everything rest realistic with the costume, because the scenes when he goes to reach his hand in for the wrench, that's Ahmed Best with the costume when he's kicking the droid thing or whatever, the close-up shot, that's Ahmed Best's, like in the costume. So I always thought those were really cool shots, and it would have been cool to see the full body with just a CGI head. But that's just me. I'm fine. I'm still fine with it the way it turned out. But it was just one of the thoughts I thought would be cool.
Well, again, too. I mean, we're talking. The first CGI character in a Star Wars film. And I don't know. A couple things. Did you know Jake Lloyd was 99% sure on this? He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Now, does that have anything to do with the hardship that he had growing up as a child actor? He was not in episode 2 or 3, obviously. And, of course, the critics had attacked him. He had issues with that. Ahmed Best has been vocal about Ahmed Best, the actor that portrayed Jar Jar Binks, has been vocal about struggles with depression that led him to the point of suicide. It's sad to know, and it makes me wonder if these people were not part of Star Wars, would they have had these issues with something else? Now, we do know the story about Dennis Lawson, Ewan McGregor's uncle, right? Wedge's uncle, Obi-Wan's uncle. He said, look, you're going to be in Star Wars. Your life's going to change. And Ewan McGregor took it. He was he is one of my favorite characters. And I think that's why I loved the Kenobi series so much. Now, Rich Brendel had said he watched a bootleg copy of this when he was in Bible college. Sean, did you know?
What a sinner! What a sinner!
It's funny. The first copy that I got, you had access to somebody that worked at a hotel, and you were able to get it on pay-per-view on VHS. Oddly enough,
they were showing the movie at the hotel on their pay-per-view while it was still in theaters. And a friend of mine who worked there, we got in there with a VCR. I hooked it up with my technical knowledge and got myself a nice, clean, crispy bootleg.
Yeah, and I still have that bootleg today. The funny thing is that, Josh, I don't know if you knew this, but when the Phantom Menace finally came out at home for home video, in the middle of a DVD era, what do? They released it on VHS.
I know, that was ridiculous. That was ridiculous.
As much as it's so nostalgic to just even own a VHS player, let alone.
It's so funny when you think about how hardcore George Lucas is about technology. He did not want to make that DVD jump with the Star Wars movie. He was like holding out. We were still getting original trilogy. Remember, we were still getting VHS original trilogy while DVD was still going on. We were damn near Blu-ray before we got the DVD sets. It felt like,
Yeah, I feel like that came out after Attack of the Clones. Like it was because it had that bonus disc with the preview of Episode 3 on it.
Yeah, it came out very, very late.
It was like 2004 or something.
Yeah.
The deluxe edition of the Phantom Menace was 2 VHS tapes.
Right.
Now, you guys know that I share my birthday with Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. I've always gotten a kick out of this. My sister shares the birthday with the Phantom Menace being released on VHS. April 4th that was released. So I do want to wrap up the show by just making hopefully it's a blanket statement. We talked about the special editions. We talked about how that was the revival of Star Wars, but isn't it a fair statement to say that the Phantom Menace was just the shot in the arm that we all needed to get from there to where we're at now? The special editions would have eventually came and gone. But it was a new Star Wars film that really paved the way for the future of Star Wars. By the way, I want this song here, the funeral song.
Noble Death.
I want that playing at my funeral, by the way, FYI. Is that fair to say that the Phantom Menace really paved the way to where we're at now with everything Star Wars?
Wait, are you saying Phantom Menace or when the special editions came out?
No, Phantom Menace. I felt Phantom Menace was the shot in the arm. The special editions was like, okay, Star Wars is somewhat back, but I mean, this is the Phantom Menace. I think surpasses the special edition moment. You know.
I think I disagree with that. I think the special editions was the shot in the arm. It was the fire. It was the spark that lit the fire. That, as they say, to leading into the Phantom Menace. The Phantom Menace is once the fire was lit, Phantom Menace took that torch and carried it forward to today. But I do believe that, in my opinion, it was the special editions that lit that fire. That was the shot in the arm to show that there's still a Star Wars audience out there willing to go to the theater and see these movies. In fact, this Saturday, I'm going to my local theater in Downers Grove that I grew up going to, the Tivoli Theater. They're doing a marathon of the original trilogy. This is the first time I've ever sat through a marathon at a theater of the original trilogy. I know they've had it, here and there and other times, but they was never at the Tivoli. And this is the theater I grew up with, so I couldn't pass it up. And I know it's going to be a long.
You've never had that experience of sitting in a theater for these three films?
No, never had this experience. So I'm really excited about it. Because I've seen all the movies in the theater individually, never done a marathon. I know there was people that did all 6 before, but this is just the original trilogy. So this is really all I'm interested in seeing as far as the marathon goes. Yeah, I've seen all 9 movies at home, just playing in the background. But I'm really excited about this theater experience with the original trilogy. And that's why I say the special editions were the shot in the arm to get the franchise going again, because of how excited I am to go see this on Saturday.
Well, I don't want to share that, it was Josh, when you were a kid, not a baby, but a kid, 4 years old, I was kind of living through that experience because I didn't have a kid of my own, obviously, and you were the same age that I had seen Star Wars, and just to experience that with you as my brother, having that bonding moment, and then kind of coming full circle with you're 4 years old when Phantom Menace is, your first experience. I was 4 years old when Star Wars was my first experience. That was really special, and I think that's something that will always be with me. And Sean, I will say, maybe it wasn't the shot in the arm for you, but I will say that if the Phantom Menace was never made, you and I would have never. You and I would not be the friends that we are today if it wasn't for that film. And you got to stay.
That is a very true statement. I can't argue with that one.
Matthew, is there anything special that this film had done for you or is doing for you now?
Well, it was the only Star Wars film that I saw with my father in the theater, I think, because he passed away in 2002. So, and at the time I wasn't in contact with him. So he had taken me to see it when it came out. And actually the theater, it was a brand new theater they had built in the town where we lived. And there was like a malfunction with the fire alarm system. So right in the middle of the movie, we all had to leave. and then come back in, and they put it back where it started, but we also got a free ticket, so we went and saw it again like the next week. So
Was that in
But-
Schaumburg by any chance?
Yeah.
no,
Was that in Schaumburg?
no, it was in,
'Cause that
it was
same
in
thing
LA,
happened.
LA County.
Yeah,
Oh,
Attack
okay.
of the Clones. Attack of the Clones had happened. And
Yeah, I remember.
I think that's a very special moment. So, and this was something I remember going to see it opening night. I was with my sister Courtney, my brother Josh. The three of us were together. Special moments. These are the takeaways. These are the takeaways. Any closing remarks? We're going to wrap the show up, but does anybody have anything on their mind that they said, man, I hope I get one more minute to express my thoughts here? Josh, you have any closing statements?
Yeah, I do actually. Thinking about, you said what my favorite scene was, and then you brought up the spaceship, the star, battle in space, and I thought about like what a movie scene is about, and it's more than just like what you're seeing on the screen. And for me, like taking in what I was watching, it's Anakin never being flying a ship in space. He has like the high metachlorian count. He has the way with knowing what move to make next. He's very foreign in space travel, but then he's still out there, dodging all of these fighter planes shooting at him. He lands it in there. He gets the job done. I always thought that was super cool, just from like a deeper level of just what you're seeing on the screen. You really have to internalize what you're actually watching, and you have to revel in the amazement of what he could do without knowing anything, just going into the unknown and getting it done.
Yeah, I think that's truly the essence of Star Wars too. Christopher White, thank you for tuning in. I want to thank all the Patreon members for tuning in. Brad Riverdahl, brother Rich Brendel, producer Ian Savage, they were all tuning in tonight. Darth Hines, you got any closing statements on this as we start celebrating the 25th anniversary year? It's a whole fucking year, because this film played all the way through Christmas time. It really consumed 1999,
Yeah.
like you would not believe. Any closing statements on this one?
Yes. Oh yeah. Here's when I look back at the release of the Phantom Menace, it's nothing but fond memories of everything that was surrounding it. Even more so than the movie itself. Just the hype leading up to it, the excitement of new Star Wars, the little teasers we'd get on the entertainment shows, Entertainment Tonight and EA News, and just everything. The fact that when I went to while I was at, actually this is this is what I call ground zero of the Star Wars community beginning to form in its worldwide fashion. I was in broadcast school at the time, where I met Alfie for the first time, and we discovered our friendship over Star Wars. Celebration happened where you and I reconnected since our Backyard Wrestling Federation days, and reconnected. And now the three of us are just the three amigos of Star Wars now. When it comes to everything, and it all stems from the release of the Phantom Menace. So yeah, when I look back at the release of this film 25 years ago, I have nothing but fond memories of what it brought to my life, both in the entertainment world and in my real life world with my friends, who I now consider friends, brothers, whatever you want to call it.
Amen to that, man. Matthew, closing statements on the kickoff of the 25th year anniversary.
Yeah, I think it's great that it's sort of nostalgic now, and that it gets referenced in the same way that the older films do. Like, I think one of the best moments of some of the recent television series was on Book of Boba Fett, when Mando got his ship, and he kind of went through the pod race track, and you got to see like the off ramp and everything. It was just really exciting to see it all recreated there, and it really got me going as somebody who went and saw it as a teenager, and so I look forward to seeing more references to some of that material in the future things that they make.
Yeah, I think because of the current state of Star Wars, the post Lucas era, it really gets grouped in with the Lucas era of Star Wars, which is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. you know. But anyways, Matthew, thank you for producing the show. Thank you for joining us on this roundtable. Josh, thank you, brother, for finally making a debut. And it's not your fault; it's mine, because this is the first time I'm officially inviting you on the show. So I look forward to having you on the show again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll definitely be back on.
And Sean,
Good
as
seeing you
always,
again, little brother.
yeah, you guys haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Sean.
So I am your show host,
Rock and roll.
Chris Rock. I want to remind
Good seeing
everybody,
you.
please support the show on Patreon. Please support the show on Patreon. We have so much great content there. I think there's like, it's getting close to 1,100 posts on there. And we're not going to do a Patreon name draw tonight. We will do that we'll do 2 on the next show. I want to thank all my producers. I want to thank all my Patreon supporters. And I want to thank the people that are just simply tuning in, like Christopher White. We will catch you next time on another episode of Mocktails from the Cantina Live. Have a good night. So long, everybody.